Just clarify this, and then we must just talk about the corporation tax part of this. This 4.4 billion saving by 2021 on disability. You're saying that is not a policy, that doesn't exist. It's a fantasy.
No. It is something that has been put forward. There has been a review. There has been a suggestion. We are not ready to bring the legislation forward.
Can I just ask you then, how does it square with what the Prime Minister said before the last election? We haven't created this to undermine it. We want to enhance and safeguard it. The most disabled should always be protected. Well,
that's exactly what I'm saying. There's been a suggestion of a change in the way that the personal dependence needs are assessed. And that's something we will continue to discuss. But I just want to pick up the point.
So is it all up for debate? Can we argue other things too? Are there other things that
I'm sure you'll argue lots of things.
The budget is merely a suggestion.
Can I just answer the question?
Yeah, no, it seems like.
All right, one at a time.
About the corporation tax and the personal tax. So I think this is really important. I do think that if you bring down taxes on companies we want to set up, we want them to invest in this country, we want them to employ people. But I should also just point out that yesterday the Chancellor also said that the income tax personal allowance is going to go up again in April. It'll go up again next year. 31 million people are going to be paying less tax, individuals, as a result of changes introduced on the last government and in the current government. We're also introducing the national living wage so that people's wages will be going up too. So to say that we are somehow ignoring individuals and focusing on businesses is not right. But of course we need people to come to this country to invest because they're the ones that are going to employ people.
What about the employment support allowance? It's demonstrated by actions. What about the employment support allowance cut by £30 per week?
Yes.
What about that?
Can we just clarify one thing? Because it does sound from what you're saying, I don't know whether I'm misinterpreting this, Nikki, you've got 20 Conservative MPs opposed to this policy, written to the Chancellor. It sounds as if you may be saying that this 4.4 billion saving isn't actually now going to happen. On reflection that the opposition to it is so great, you may have to reconsider.
And won't the Chancellor have even more difficulty balancing the book?
Emily, let me just hear the answer to the question.
Well, we are absolutely still engaged in a discussion on that with both members of Parliament, as I say, with disability groups and campaigners very much.
Yeah, that's political speak, but we aren't going to do it.
This is clearly an issue about...
This is another 4.4 billion that has to be found from somewhere else.
Hang on a second, you can't have it, people can't have it both ways. They can't, on the one hand, say you can't make this change and then say you're not going to. We have a track record
as a government,
you must
of
let her
making
just finish her
savings.
sentences, I must.
We have a track record as a government of making savings. They're difficult decisions to make, I can tell you, as ministers, but they're the right thing to do for exactly the reason why we start off the discussion, that we want to live within our means as a government. It's what we ask people to do in their individual lives. It's what we should do as a government.
The woman in pink there.
Yes. If we've decided to cut corporation tax to make the UK an interesting place and a good place to invest in, hasn't David Cameron shot himself in the foot by actually bringing along an EU referendum where we could actually be outside Europe now and less attractive to business?
Emily Thornbury, can you answer that?
I mean, I agree with you. Of course I do. But, you know, I also look at this...
You agree with her that cutting corporation tax is a good idea?
No,
That's what she said.
No, what she said was, if we're going to cut corporation tax in order to make the United Kingdom more attractive, then surely an even bigger threat is leaving the European Union, and I agree with that. I think that leaving the European Union is a threat to inward investment, and at a time when we're not getting enough inward investment into this country is one of the many problems that we have. You know, the borrowing has gone up. I mean, the borrowing's gone up by 35 billion since November. You know, the Chancellor was saying one sum, and then a few months later it's 35 billion pounds more, and it seems like we've got another 4 billion to add on top, given the U-turn we've heard tonight. But we have a budget that doesn't actually address the real issues. The real issues are, you know, people's wages are not going up at the same rate as prices. We have a housing crisis and we're not getting enough houses built. We're not getting enough investment into our country. We're not, you know, our growth is slowing down. Our tax burden as a whole is going up. And very rich people and big businesses are not paying their taxes. Now,
and what would you do? What would Labour do about all this?
Well, I think the first thing, I mean, I could talk all night about what we would do instead. So let me not. Let me just tell you what one thing we would do.
The Chancellor done, you would not have cut taxes.
Do you know one of the things that I would do? One of the things that I would do is I would invest in homes. I would invest in more houses. If we are supposed to be, if we're supposed to be doing something in order to save money later, how about building some homes for the younger generation? Where are our kids going to live? We have to build some homes. And if we want to cut the budget, if we want to cut the amount of money we pay out on benefits, how about building some homes so that rents are no longer so high, so we don't have to pay out so much money on housing benefits?
Let's address the corporation tax.
I'll come to you.
I mean,
let's stick with corporation
tax. The big question I would have for George Osborne if he were here. He's not in the audience anywhere, is he? No. What is the point of, on the one hand, saying we are going to be really decisive and we are going to lower corporation tax, and on the other hand say, yes, but we're withdrawing an awful lot of tax allowances and so on, so that in effect you drive them up again? And I think that's a rather curious situation. It's not my job to come to the defence of George Osborne, but I understand that he has at least made some moves to prevent large companies from exporting tax, and that is absolutely right, and he should have done it long ago.
Just stick with tax, Mark, and then we'll move on. On corporation tax, do you agree with Roger that he's given with one hand, taken away with the other? Or
he has somewhat, yes, because his new target is to reduce corporation tax to 17%, but to make it harder to offset your previous losses against your current profits. So that's the allowance he's got rid of. I can understand why people get furious about corporation tax, because I can see on the face of it that it looks like there's a big cheat going on, but we're going to have to modernise our tax system. This was a tax that was brought in the 1930s, a much simpler time. When you are now dealing with companies that have an algorithm in Los Angeles, their website hosted in Holland, the intellectual property registered in Singapore, it's very difficult to work out precisely where the economic activity is taking place. Back in simpler times, when we just went to the butcher, the baker and the candlestick maker on the high street, it was much easier to work out where economic activity was taking place.
Do you agree with the woman in pink there in the second row when she says we need to get corporation tax down to get business into Britain?
Yeah, I'd abolish corporation tax altogether. I want to encourage all companies to come here, invest, employ people who, by the way, then pay income tax and VAT when they go out to the shops. And the problem is, I think if you don't abolish it, these huge internet multinational companies have different IP registered all over the place, perfectly rationally, intelligently, and it's the little guy with the little corner shop who actually gets sort of penalised. It's the smaller companies that get penalised.
But isn't that another argument for the European Union? I mean, isn't it about time that the countries of the European Union actually stuck together and said to these large companies, you must pay your taxes?
Well,
and we, the European Union, will not let you get away with not paying your taxes anymore.
I would prefer our taxes to be set by our democratically elected Parliament.
But if we were able to club
Commission.
together and make sure that they did it properly.
The European Union has proved itself completely incapable of dealing with issues like that.
The man there on the left.
It's fantasy to think that they help.
OK, we'll come to the European Union maybe in a moment. There will be no surprise. Yes, you.
Is cutting corporation tax a last-ditch attempt to keep the big businesses like HSBC in our country because we're scared that we actually will leave the EU?
Is that what you think it is?
Yes. I'm asking, is it? It's something that I thought it could well be. Are they trying to appease companies like HSBC to keep their big, huge headquarters here because they're worried they'll actually leave if we leave the EU?
All right, Nicky Morgan, very briefly, is that the
No, and I think it is about making sure that companies know that Britain is a good place for them to invest and to employ. I mean, companies like HSBC and others, they employ a lot of people in this country, as Mark says, then pay their personal taxes. But I mean, look, Emily and I are going to agree on very much tonight, but I think the one thing we can agree on is that actually we should stay in a reformed EU. Just to answer the lady's question,
there isn't a reformed EU to stay in. Which reformed EU?
Referendum.
Nikki, please.
All right,
which reformed EU? There is no reformed EU.
There is a reformed EU.
I'm not a seer about the way this programme will go, but I do tell you there just might be a question on Europe, so let's just hold our horse on. Let's take another aspect, a headline from the budget, but before I do, let me just say about Question Time's plans. We're off the air for Easter. If you want to come again, if you want to come to Question Time, we're in Ilford, curiously, not very far from Chelmsford, on April the 7th. Ilford, we call it East London to separate it from Chelmsford, Essex. And then in Doncaster the week after that. That's April the 7th and then the 14th of April. And you can apply, the details are on the screen now, the television and the website, but I will give them at the end in more detail. Just so you know, because you'll be extremely welcome. Jenny Stanton, you're very welcome too. Can we have your question?
The sugar tax will add about 25p per bottle of soft drink. Will that really deter parents from buying it? Mark
Littlewood.
This is a disastrous, pernicious, unfair, regressive tax that will do absolutely nothing to help public health. Absolutely nothing. The economic evidence is pretty clear on this point. Wherever these things have been tried, whether it's been on sugar or sugary drinks in, say, Mexico, and it's been on a fat tax tried in Denmark, it actually gets you virtually zero of the way towards improving public health.
Why?
Why? Well, because, for example, people will trade down brands. So rather than buying perhaps a premium brand of cola, you will simply switch to buying the local brand or a less recognised brand, quite possibly consuming still more sugar. So people switch their shopping habits. And what really appalled me about seeing this in the budget was politicians on both sides of the House, Conservative and Labour, sort of congratulating themselves that they had brought in a new taxation which is going to hit you in the pocket. It's all very well for Nicky to say your income tax is going down, but your shopping bill is going to go up on the grounds that this will help public health. It won't. And I was particularly upset to see the Labour Party warmly applauding it. This is a tax that is regressive and hits the poorest hardest. To actually see the Labour opposition almost warmly applauding George Osborne for bringing it in, I thought was absolutely horrific. So this is a bad tax, it's going to hit the poor, and it will do nothing to improve the health of our children or indeed the adults.
Yes, sir.
So what can be done to reduce the cost of healthy food?
Well, it's not, everybody always looks at the food side of it. I think the real problem is exercise, actually. Calories generally going down, sugar consumption is generally going down year on year in Britain. If there is an obesity epidemic, it is not being caused by sugar consumption going up.
All right, and you said
at all. It's caused by us having a sedentary lifestyle. So don't play football on your PlayStation, go and play it in the park, is what we've got to tell.
Man in the yellow shirt, yes.
I have to disagree with the man who just spoke, because we tax alcoholic drinks because they're unhealthy. Why not tax sugary drinks because they're definitely unhealthy?
Tasmina.
George Osborne would have absolutely loved all of the headlines about this budget to be about the sugar tax, but they weren't, and events took over from it. However, I would say in terms of public health, whilst I don't believe it will stop people from drinking sugary drinks, not least children, it will raise awareness in terms of health issues, which is an important effect of it. We need to do something about obesity in this country. Is this going to be the answer? Absolutely not. Can it be part of an answer? Yes, it can, in terms of how we encourage the people of this country to try and eat better. And one of the ways we're doing that in Scotland is by free school meals, which we have for primary 1 to 3 children, where they're guaranteed a healthy meal every single day, and that's now being extended in the next year. Please, it's worthwhile listening. I'm talking about children.
We're actually talking about the sugar tax and soft drinks, not about Scotland's policy on meals for children.
Raise awareness of something. Why not raise awareness of it? Don't raise a tax to raise awareness of it, just raise awareness of it. It's a bizarre way to set your tax policy, to do it to sort of set signals.
But I will finish my answer, because it's important. We were talking about health in the main, and in the main, Nicola Sturgeon has also confirmed that in the next Parliament will be also ensuring that children that go to nursery get a meal a day. What we need to be looking at doing in schools and classrooms... What do you think about the
sugar? I'm sorry, look, it's very well to sit here and talk about Scottish policy on children. What is your answer to Jenny Stanton's question?
Jenny Stanton, is it going to make a difference? I'm saying it will in terms of raising awareness, and that was the first part of my answer.
Will it deter? Well, then that's fine. That's all we need. Roger Helmer.
What may end up doing is setting
I am just amazed by Tasmina. She is prepared. Hang on, the chair has just given. You are prepared to apply a regressive tax which affects lower income, poorer people disproportionately, merely so that you can have the satisfaction of raising awareness. I think that is tragic, coming from a left-wing... Well, that's exactly what you said.
That's not
word for word. That is what you said.
Nicky Morgan, you come to the defence of it.
I do think it's the right thing to do, and I have to say I've had my mind converted on that, because I think behaviour does need to change, and I think that there is an issue about wider health and exercise and everything else. But when I looked at the figures...
What converted it to you? Was it that the Prime Minister changed his mind? You thought you better stay alongside him?
Absolutely. It hasn't
of course, I always support my Prime Minister. Of course I do.
Whichever way he goes, you'll be with him.
No. We debated this, I think, when I was on a previous question time, actually, as one of the warm-up questions. But the biggest single source of sugar intake in young people's diets is sugary drinks. And when you've got 1 in 10 young people starting primary school obese, and it rises to 2 in 10 leaving primary school obese. There is clearly an issue in this country.
So what about latte macchiatos and all those things that I don't understand but are absolutely full of sugar?
The medical evidence is that actually, in spite of the sugar in those sorts of drinks, actually the milk and presumably the calcium and everything else is still beneficial to people. But let me say one thing.
Not if it's full of sugar.
Well, Roger, there is a medical evidence, and that's how this policy has been developed.
Oh, come on.